So last week, GWODEC 2019 happened, and there was something that happened that I'm just super excited to talk about. Hey everybody, it's your friend and your guy and the dude with the suckiest thumbnails, Gardiner, the Linux gamer. This video would not be possible if it weren't for the 151 amazing patrons over on Patreon, without whom this show would not be possible. I want to give a special shout out to Pipes Cannon for supporting the show at the highest possible level. Thank you, Pipes Cannon, your support is truly humbling. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. You can also subscribe to see more videos like this if you're really enjoying it. If you don't like YouTube, you can also check out LBRY, beta.lbry.tv/@thelinuxgamer. So, as many of you probably know, I am not shy about voicing my opinion on something that I am very passionate about, and that is it's a hot button issue in the GNOME world, and that would be the topic of theming. Theming is a huge deal in the Linux world. Some people love it, other people absolutely hate it, and I have a strong opinion on this. I am not shy about voicing that opinion either. And it's not that I think people shouldn't be allowed to theme their desktop. You do you. I mean, it's your desktop. It's open source software. Go ahead. The problem is GNOME doesn't have theming as defined by like the traditional, GNOME 2 or KDE Plasma or XFCE. And when distros ship customized themes for GNOME, it can end up breaking things. Rendering is a particular issue, contrast is another, and that's bad. It's bad for the GNOME community. See, the problem is GNOME developers, people who write their apps in GTK, know that there isn't an API for theming in GNOME, and so they generally target the Adwaita, I don't even know, what the heck?
Adwaita.
All right, Adwaita. That would be how you would think to pronounce it. Anyway, when distros ship their custom themes, it can end up causing issues when, app developers are using hard-coded colors, and it causes all kinds of problems. We'll talk about the problems that it can cause later. And there have been some people who have criticized this opinion because it is antithetical, in their opinion, to the free software ideals. I would respectfully disagree with that. I believe that we have a community here that needs to have a common target, but I can see where some people would have that gripe. Thankfully, the spirit of open source is also about collaboration. It's about coming together, airing your grievances, and working together towards a common goal as a team. And that's exactly what happened at GWODEC 2019 this year. So GWODEC, if you're not familiar, is a GNOME developer conference. I think it's held annually. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it's held annually. And it's always enjoyable to see the results of GWODEC. At this year's conference, many people, including representatives from Ubuntu's Yaru team, Pop! OS, Elementary OS, app developers, and GNOME developers, they were all there. They sat down in a room, they hashed out some of the plans regarding vendor styling. And there have been several exciting blog posts and forum posts about vendor styling and about the roundtable, the discussion that was had, and I wanted to go over some of that with you guys today. Special thanks to LastGlow on Discord for sending me one of these articles and getting the ball on this video rolling. And keep in mind, if you want to read any of the stuff that I'm talking about, you can find links to all of it in the description. So most of the complaints that GTK developers have when it comes to downstream styling is that is when the downstream styling actually changes core CSS values in Adwaita. It can end up breaking things in subtle, unexpected, and unacceptable ways. For example, when you change the padding of a title bar, you can end up with some elements being vertically misaligned or not displaying properly. Additionally, checkboxes or buttons with sizing that varies from what would be expected from Adwaita can end up breaking alignment or placement or other things in third-party apps, and that can end up making the apps unusable or just cumbersome to use. Changing Adwaita's colors also can end up with low contrast or unreadable UI elements like breadcrumbs or input fields. Much of the discussion going on at GWODEC 2019 revolved around how best to facilitate downstream styling. Now, the reason they had this discussion is this is obviously something that vendors of GNOME want in the thing. They're doing it anyway, even though it's not officially supported. And also, this is something that app developers have been complaining about when things break due to downstream styles. See, vendors want to be able to change things to coincide with their brand. So think Yaru or Pop! OS. Vendors would also like to be able to upstream things that they have changed, like flat checkboxes or rounded menu borders. But then there are things that cause major problems when customizing the Adwaita CSS, like, for example, widget resizing, margins, or padding changes. So most of their conversation actually revolved around what would actually be practical to implement in GNOME. And basically the conclusion is changing of colors. And there were a bunch of questions that were raised because of this. How can GNOME and GTK facilitate vendors defining recognizable styles that fit their brand? How can app developers easily test against these customized styles? How can the desktop environment ensure readability and a high contrast? And how will GNOME software deal with customized styles with screenshots? It is jarring when you go into GNOME software, you pick an app you want to install, you see the screenshot, you click install, and then it doesn't look like that when you install it. That's jarring. That's not usable, in my opinion. So a few of the proposed ways forward are relatively simple. First of all, updating the documentation. Being able to have the Adwaita color palette documented publicly and being able to have the use cases for each of those colors being well defined and available to developers, that's a good first step. The next thing would be submitting merge requests against apps that have hard-coded colors. Additionally, going through GNOME itself and fixing places where colors are inappropriately used. Hard-coded colors end up being a huge issue, especially when it comes to contrast. And finally, updating the human interface guidelines so that appropriate CSS variables can be easily found and referenced. Now, down the line, they're talking about implementing GTK debugging tools that will allow for easily testing against multiple color variants. Now, all of this is great. It's a great tentative first step, and I think that this is amazing that we've come together as a community and have been able to try and solve this big issue. But even after all of this work is complete, GNOME will not support theming in the traditional sense. And I don't think that it should. GNOME and GTK use CSS to give maximum flexibility to app developers. Asking GNOME to implement a traditional theming API would be as if you were asking Mozilla to create a theming API for websites. But because of their work here, app developers and GNOME vendors will be able to do a ton of things more efficiently. For example, they'll be able to work more collaboratively, and that's great. This will also mean that best practices will also be followed more closely. Branding styling for companies like Canonical and System76 will be able to be applied more universally, which will mean that you'll be able to tell what operating system someone's using just by looking at it. The GNOME and GTK community will be stronger, and app developers will actually have more freedom in interesting and innovative ways. As Tobias Bernard mentions in his blog post, which you can find in the description below, app developers will be able to do more interesting things with color. Look at Epiphany right now. If you open Epiphany as a private window, it actually recolors the window to blue. That's actually something that was non-trivial to implement the way Adwaita works right now, but going forward with this new proposal, it should be a lot easier. And a global dark option in GNOME's settings panel would actually be much more feasible rather than the Tweak Tools hacky implementation. Now, all in all, I think that this is fantastic. I'm proud of the GNOME team for being able to come together and work together on this issue. Being able to reach a compromise in a way forward is something that we need more of in the world. I can't wait for an even more beautiful GNOME and for our distros and app developers to be able to work together more efficiently. But I want to know what you think. Are you excited for these changes to GNOME? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys have to say. Hello, friends. I'm interrupting this outro to give you a special shout out to all of the people who joined the TLG Army on Patreon. You guys are awesome, and I wanted to say thank you to all of you. First up, we have Dylan Taylor. Thank you, Dylan. We have Ice Boy. Thank you, Ice Boy. We have Muldus. Thank you, Muldus. Claudio Santoro. Thank you, Claudio. Christoph. Thank you, Christoph. Eric Nord. Eric, thank you. Finn Bender. Thank you, Finn. Michael Valentino. Thank you, Michael. Luke Jensen. Thank you, Luke. Richard Purdy. Thank you, Richard. Aki Bjorn. Thank you, Aki Bjorn. And finally, Stephen Cannon. Thank you, Steven. If you want to have your name read out in one of the first videos of the month, then head over to Patreon, patreon.com/thelinuxgamer. You can also, if you support at a high enough tier, you can get your name on the screen back here. But that's it for now. On to the regularly scheduled outro. If you believe in the work that I do, you can support this show with a monthly contribution over on Patreon. You can also support the show with a monthly contribution on LBRY. There's a link in the description. I also have t-shirts for sale. This one is one of my favorites. Let me know what you think about that in the comments as well. But no matter what you do, whether you hit that like button or share this video with your friends, don't forget to subscribe to see more from me, the Linux Gamer. And as always, thanks for watching.